Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Tonight, we step into a home that should have been safe, a place where laughter filled the halls and children dreamed without fear. But safety is an illusion, and some homes never let their secrets go. Subscribe to the vault and never walk alone again. The Greystone family thought they had found their forever house. It stood at the edge of town, weathered but sturdy, 2 stories tall with peeling white paint and an attic window that stared down at the street like a watching eye. The father, Daniel, called it a project, while the mother, Claire, saw it as the perfect place to raise their 2 children, Emma and Noah. The kids were excited at first. They ran through the halls, staking claim to their rooms. Emma, the older one at 10, picked the corner room with wide windows. Noah, only 7, wanted the room just beneath the attic. It was smaller, tucked away, but he said he liked the quiet. That quiet didn't last long. The first nights were restless. Both children complained of scratching above their ceilings, light at first, then heavier, as though someone crawled across the floorboards above. Daniel dismissed it as squirrels or raccoons in the attic. He promised to set traps, but when he climbed up there with a flashlight, he found nothing. No nests, no droppings, no holes, just old dust and forgotten boxes. Still, the noises continued. Claire was the first to notice other changes. She'd find faint streaks of dirt along the upstairs hallway, though she scrubbed the floors daily. She caught Emma awake past midnight, staring at the ceiling, claiming she could hear someone crying above her. Noah grew pale, quieter, whispering at breakfast that he didn't want to sleep in his room anymore. At first, his parents brushed it off as imagination. But one morning, Claire found Noah's pillow covered in attic dust. Fine gray powder, the kind that only fell from the rafters above. He swore he hadn't gone up there. He said it had come down to him. And then came the whispers. Late at night, Emma began waking to the sound of soft voices coming through the vents, thin as breath. She couldn't make out words, only a broken rhythm, as if a child's voice were whispering a lullaby with no melody. Noah admitted he heard it too, but he said it wasn't just whispering, it was calling his name. The house had a presence. It wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, it was patient. And from the attic above, it was waiting. The Greystones tried to dismiss the unease, but the house was no longer theirs. It was making itself known. It started with the doors. One night, Claire woke to the sound of Emma screaming. She rushed upstairs and found her daughter's bedroom door wide open. Emma swore she had locked it, but Claire chalked it up to forgetfulness. She tucked her back in, kissed her forehead, and promised everything was fine. The next night, Noah's door opened on its own. He was found sitting up in bed, pale and shaken, whispering, "It was in my room." Dust clung to his hair, and long scratches scarred the floor near his bed. Deep grooves cut into the wood as though tiny fingers had clawed their way toward him. Daniel tried to reassure his children, but even he couldn't ignore what came next. In the mornings, they began finding small piles of attic debris, dust, splinters, and old nails, scattered neatly in the upstairs hallway. No one admitted to placing them there. The piles grew larger each day, as if something were dragging itself closer, step by step, from the attic door toward the children's rooms. Then came the first sighting. Emma swore she saw a child standing in the upstairs hall late one night. She had gotten up for water and froze when she noticed a figure just outside her door. A small, thin shape with its head tilted to the side. She said it looked like a boy, but his skin was gray and his eyes were too dark. He didn't move. He just stood there, dust falling from his hair like ash. When she blinked, he was gone. The parents didn't believe her, but Noah did. He said he had seen the same boy at the foot of his bed. "He wants me to come upstairs," Noah whispered. "He says I belong with him." The parents finally called the police. They feared a real intruder, someone sneaking into their home. Officers searched the house, checked the attic, and found nothing. But one officer came down pale, swearing he had heard a child humming in the rafters. He said it felt wrong, like the sound was inside his head, not around him. The family grew desperate. Claire began leaving the lights on in every room. Daniel hammered the attic door shut, but the noises didn't stop. At night, the family lay awake, listening to scratching above them, hearing whispers slither through the vents. The house no longer echoed with laughter or warmth. It was heavy, oppressive, waiting. And then one night, Emma woke to find handprints on her ceiling. Small, dusty handprints pressed into the paint above her bed as if something had crawled across the ceiling to watch her sleep. The Greystones realized this was no intruder. Something lived in the attic, and it was coming for their children. The night the attic gave up its secret began with silence. Not the comforting kind, but the silence that presses against the skin, heavier than sound itself. The Greystones had tried everything. Lights left on, attic sealed, prayers whispered in corners. But silence fell like a curtain, and the house seemed to be holding its breath. It began with Noah. Claire woke to his footsteps. She sat up in bed and realized his door had opened again, though she had locked it herself that evening. She ran into the hall and froze. Noah was at the top of the stairs, facing the attic door. His small body was trembling, his hand reaching out as if pulled by invisible strings. The attic door, though nailed shut, now hung ajar. Nails bent outward, splinters curling as though something had pushed from the other side. "Noah!" Claire screamed, but her voice only seemed to wake the thing that lingered above. The scratching began again, violent and rapid, like 1,000 small claws raking the floorboards overhead. Dust rained down from the ceiling, covering Noah's shoulders as he stepped closer. His lips moved as if answering a voice only he could hear. Daniel lunged forward, yanking Noah back just as the attic door swung wide. What stepped out was not a child. Not anymore. It was small, yes, but stretched too thin, its limbs long and trembling as though they had forgotten how to hold a body. Its head was cocked at an angle, bones jutting sharp beneath pale skin, hair dangling in clumps filled with dust. But the face, oh, the face. It flickered between expressions, like a broken film reel, smiling, crying, screaming, blank, and its eyes were holes filled with dark, endless hunger. It stepped into the hall, and with each step the air grew heavier, the house groaning as though bending under its grief. Emma screamed. The sound seemed to please it. The entity's mouth stretched wider, too wide, jagged teeth pushing through blackened gums as a dry sob rattled from its chest. Its hands dragged along the walls, leaving trails of dust and bloody scratches. Daniel tried to block its path, but the thing moved through him as if he were smoke. Cold poured through his chest, dropping him to his knees, gasping, clawing at his own throat as though hands still gripped him from within. It wanted the children. The ghost child crouched low, its head twitching, eyes locked on Noah. Emma tried to drag her brother back, but the entity lunged, its body contorting with inhuman speed. Its fingers wrapped around Noah's wrist, small, skeletal, but impossibly strong. Noah shrieked, his skin blistering where it touched him, a mark seared into his flesh. Claire grabbed her children, pulling with all her strength, screaming for Daniel. Together they tore Noah from its grasp, stumbling down the stairs as the entity clung to the banister, head snapping side to side, jaw unhinging with a cry that shook the walls. The house roared with its grief. Windows cracked, lights burst, dust and debris poured down the stairwell. Still, the Greystones fled, the wailing following them out the front door into the night air. But when they looked back, the ghost child stood in the attic window, staring down at them. Head tilted, mouth open in a silent cry, its dark eyes fixed on Noah. It had marked him, and it was not finished. The Greystones never slept in that house again. That night, they fled to a neighbor's, pounding on the door until someone let them in. They were pale, shaking, clutching their children like survivors of a storm. When asked what had happened, Daniel could not speak. His lips trembled, but no words came. Claire only whispered, "It wanted them." By morning, the house stood silent. The attic window open, curtains swaying though there was no wind. They packed what they could and left Merriwick behind. Friends called them foolish, said they had been driven out by superstition. But those who entered the Greystone house afterward never stayed long. Some heard scratching in the walls, others heard footsteps overhead, and one family reported waking to find attic dust sprinkled across their children's pillows, though the attic door was nailed shut. No one stayed longer than a month. Noah carried the scar on his wrist for the rest of his life, a small gray handprint that never faded. Sometimes at night, even in a new town, he would wake screaming, clutching his arm, insisting that something was tugging him toward the attic door that no longer existed. Emma grew quiet, withdrawn, never sleeping without a light. She swore she could still hear the whispers in the vents, a lullaby with no melody, calling her name. The Greystones had escaped the house, but not the entity. Because it had not been tied to the house, it had been tied to the children. The upstairs room remains. Dust falls, scratches grow deeper, and when the silence settles heavy enough, the ghost child stirs again, waiting for someone to open the door. It still hungers. Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. You've heard the scratching above and the cry of what waits in the attic. Subscribe to the vault and never walk alone again. Listen in the dark. Watch with the lights off. If you hear footsteps above your room, do not go upstairs. We upload daily. And one night, the story may be yours. If you have a story of your own, please feel free to add it in the comments. You never know. The next story could be yours. See you on the next video.